Okay. Well, we're going to get started this evening. I do know that we do have still some parents that are coming over from the previous link. Once again, I do apologize for the technical difficulties, but that is something that we deal with in our world is the use of technology and sometimes the challenges that we are faced with regarding that technology. But I would like to welcome all the parents and community members that are with us this evening. This is one of those opportunities that I wanted to take to not only reach out to parents, but more importantly, share with you how Southern Middle School may look as we're approaching the 2020-2021 school year. So a big thank you to all the parents that had completed the survey, submitted questions to me, even via email, related to any of the questions that you may have regarding the health and safety plan or the start of the school here at Southern Middle School. But please keep in mind that the safety and security will always be our number one priority here at Southern Middle School, as well as within the Southern York County School District. And we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that we're keeping everyone safe. So just as another final follow-up this is another opportunity for us to follow up from the board meeting that was on July 9th related to the health and safety measures. As many of you know, that we are in some unprecedented times and there's many unknowns at this time. We just received an update from the Pennsylvania Department of Education a little after 4 p.m. today with more specific guidelines now coming from the state. All of our school districts have been working feverishly on developing health and safety plans, but now we have some more guidance that has come as a result of the state's health and safety plan, and the district will look at that information and determine, what type of changes or modifications we're going to need to make to the district plan. One other thing I wanted to point out is when we created this health and safety plan, this was created well over a month ago, starting with the dialogue with staff, some teachers, et cetera. And as we developed that, as you know, we were in the green phase. But we know that things are changing rapidly as there are more reported cases regarding the COVID-19. And as a result of that, that is one of the concerns that, we're going to continue to address as an administrative team. But for me, Southern Middle School, because we had a late start, we will finish a little closer to 7 o'clock. For those of you at that are part of our presentation that we'll be going over to the high school. Dr. Mullen is aware that he'll be pushing back his start time a little bit of time for everyone to transition over there. So we will finish close to about 6:50. And that would give, anybody, give me an opportunity to go through and answer the questions that have been submitted. And it'll also give me an opportunity to answer any questions that parents may have that may come up in the feed here. So if there are any questions that we do not answer or are not able to get to, or if you do have any other specific questions, please email them to me. My information has been sent out via email. Email them to me, as I'll be following up each week with a video chat just about some upcoming things related to school and then answering some of those questions. So today's plan, what I want to do is review some of the changes as a result of the opening of school for 2020-2021 for Southern Middle School, as well as how that would impact with face covering, face masks, cleaning and sanitizing, social distancing, monitoring of students and staff health, and following up with any other questions that may not have fallen into those categories. And then also regarding our digital academy, which all of you have received information, but just wanted to follow up on just some of the other components as how it relates to Southern Middle School. So one of the changes going into next school year is that Southern Middle School class periods are moving from 47 to 55 minutes. In doing so, we're actually reducing the number of classes students will be attending from 7 classes to 6 classes. What that will help us do is reduce the amount of transition, and it'll also accommodate for any type of the plans, whether it was a full return, an AB, or even a virtual. It will provide students that flexibility. And the reason why I say the flexibility is many of our parents had shared that going into the social distancing at the end of last school year, students had a lot of work from a lot of subjects. So with keeping that in mind, we're identifying what are the specific classes that are required by the state, and then providing some elective options for students. So for instance, all students will be required to take English, math, science, social studies, and health and phys ed. So those will comprise of 5 of the 6 classes, and I'll discuss a little bit more about that in a moment. Also, regarding academic grouping, in order for us to provide social distancing, especially with the combination of the different plans that are in the proposed health and safety plan, one thing we are doing for the 2020-2021 school year is we will have heterogeneously grouped English and science. For any parents that have a child with us that's going into 8th grade, that is something we did last school year for our social studies. But in order to make sure we're maintaining those guidelines to make sure they're meeting the social distancing requirements within the classroom, in order to make our schedule work, we needed to make sure we're defining and grouping students accordingly. So in order to maximize the resources that we have, the staff that we have, the heterogeneous grouping is something that we needed to move to for this school year. The standards will be focused on during the instruction, so students can receive remediation as well as receive some enrichment or some acceleration in the classroom based on their individual needs. And finally, any of the recommendations that we're having will not have an impact on any child going to the high school. So students that are looking to move into an honors track or a pre-AP track, our students at the 8th grade will be able to make those recommendations for the students in order to be appropriately placed in those classes. So as I mentioned, some of the other classes that were originally part of the recommendations that you had signed back in February into March provided the option of students participating in our practical arts, as well as performing arts and world language. So one of the challenges, in taking a look at what that additional class may look like is if students are interested in participating in the performing arts, then they would have to make that choice between that and the practical arts. And then at the 8th grade level, if the students in the performing arts and world language, there are other considerations that we would need to make, to make sure that those students are not only challenged academically, but then also that we're providing them the time within the school day to take those classes. So there may be some decisions that myself, as well as assistant principal and counselors, will be contacting parents for any student that may be in performing arts as well as world language in order to create a schedule to meet within our 6 class period a day schedule for this upcoming school year. Some of the next steps in scheduling, which was a question, can students make changes to their schedule? Yes, that will be something that will allow to have students to do so once we get into school. That's going to be no different, moving forward as we're looking at the different classes. And then student schedules will be released on August 10th through Sapphire. And that will also include we'll also be sharing the supply list. Several parents asked, what will my child need when they come into the middle school? So we'll have that supply list that will be broken down specifically by teams, which is something I'm going to get into right now. Traditionally, Southern Middle School would have an open house, which would have been that first Monday before the start of school. Due to the guidelines that have been set forth from the state as well as the CDC, the actual open house at Southern Middle School, we will not have that. But what our plan is to have a virtual open house with students. We have team members, something we're so thankful for, that we're able to create teams by sharing, instead of having shared staff, having some staff from the high school come to the middle school this year. So we're able now to have teams in 7th and 8th grade that will include not only English, math, science, and social studies, as well as health and phys ed. So there will be members on each of two 7th grade teams and 2 of the 8th grade teams that will have those designated staff members. And also we will have special education teachers assigned to teams that will help those teachers work with those students, whether it's a learning disability, emotional disturbance, a GI, gifted IEP, allowing those students the opportunity to have their needs met while in the classroom. And our focus, as was last year and always, is developing those relationships at the start of school. But due to this pandemic, we're actually going to start making those communications before the start of school. The teams communicating before the start of school would be so that your child will have an opportunity to put a face to a name and potentially know a little bit about their teacher prior to the start of school. And one of the questions did come up, was specific to field trips for the year. We are postponing any and all field trips for the 2020-2021 school year with a lot of uncertainty ahead of us. We believe, the field trips is something that is something we can look at somewhere in the future. But we want to make sure that, our community, our state, our country is in a better place before we look forward to scheduling field trips. So as we look at the face covering and face masks, a lot of questions that were shared and asked of me, as to what we're going to do with face masks. So just to reiterate some of the components from the board presentation by Dr. Bryson last Thursday is when students are eating and drinking, or at least 6 apart, they're required. Obviously, when they're eating and drinking, they're not able to use them. But if they're 6 feet, they need to maintain 6 feet apart in their areas. Desks will also be 6 feet apart. So that's going to be another time when, even though they're 6 feet apart, students would have that exception from wearing. But, it's one of those requirements that, we believe that in order to maintain social distancing as well as maintain the spread of COVID-19, that students should wear them. Another exception is when students and staff are engaged in activities that are at least 6 feet apart, that they would not be required, but if they're any closer, students would be required to wear them. So the one question was, Dr. Repper, what are you going to do if a student chooses not to wear a mask? Well, as we know, that was shared that if there are medical reasons that a student cannot, wear the mask, that is something that we will follow up with that parent. Because I know that is a concern as to what we will do. So that's going to be our first step in addressing the masks that they are worn. But if they are not worn by a student, we will see that there is a follow-up. If a student does not have a mask or comes to school, we will have masks that the student will be given because we want to make sure that the student is provided with that opportunity. But one thing as a parent, the one thing that you can do is, when your child is getting ready to come to school, that they have their mask with them. You're doing a check to, make sure they're feeling well. Because when in doubt, if they're not feeling well, we ask that you keep the student at home. And that's the same thing that has been directed to our staff members if they're not feeling well, whether it's a common cold or if it's any other symptoms. We want to make sure that, we're not in a position where we are spreading, the possible germs there. And masks, though, are going to be required on buses for students. Some of the questions came up is, okay, what do we do for the 6 feet distancing on the bus? Currently within our plan is that students will sit, in pairs. They'll sit next to each other, family. I have 4 children. One's in junior high, and 3 are going to be in the same elementary school. So in that case, going on the bus, my children would be sitting together on that bus. And then the buses would be wiped and sanitized, right after the buses are done, so that they're able to prepare for additional bus transportation for other students. So as we're looking into the cleaning and sanitizing questions were, okay, what are we going to do when students vacate or they get up from a desk? There are going to be some changing of classes at the Southern Middle School in order to provide students the opportunity to participate in a band, orchestra, or choir, a world language. Those are not classes that everybody in our school is participating in. So the cohorts will be the teams, but there will be some passing of classes. So in doing so, it'll be the responsibility within the classroom of the teacher to wipe down those classes. Wipe down those desks. So the one thing is, well, Dr. Reppert, how much time is going to be needed between there? Well, with having 55 minutes between classes, one of the things I know is I'll be on this webinar for 50 minutes, 55 minutes, but I know us as adults need to get up and walk around. Our students are going to need to get up and stretch and move around, because sitting in a seat an entire school day is not going to be healthy. So we're going to be encouraging our teachers to utilize some of the activities that they received as a part of their responsive classroom training in July as icebreakers, as ways to energize and engage the students as they soon get into classroom. We will have increased hand sanitizers and hand washing stations, and then also, increased cleansing of high touch points, in the buses, cafeteria tables, and then the increased ventilation in the building and the buses. We do have windows that can be opened within the building, to at least provide some of that air ventilation. There is protective glass that has been installed actually this week at Southern Middle School in the main office. And then there's going to be those also in the cafeteria and in classrooms, where if there's going to be small group settings, that the teachers will have the opportunity to have small plexiglass dividers that they can work even closer with students. And then the final question regarding that came up about bathrooms, those will be sanitized throughout the day. We'll identify specific bathrooms for the 7th grade and 8th grade students to use. And in that way, we can make sure those are maintained, those are cleaned on a regular basis. One of the big changes for Southern Middle School, yes, we do have lockers. I know that has always been one of the challenges for our students coming into middle school, locker combination, but we will not be assigning lockers this school year. So the question is, what's going to happen then? Well, students will have the opportunity to come in with their materials, with their backpack, and then they're going to be able to take that, to their classroom. That way, we don't have in the hallway, we don't have log jams in the hallway, even at lockers. So that is one thing that we've put into place for this year. Also, regarding physical education, and speaking with the physical education department, they're all on board, is that students will not be using the locker room, and students would not need to change for physical education. Some of the activities that they're going to be doing will be more individualized. So any activity, any type of equipment that is being used will be sanitized after each use, but the students would not be congregating in the locker room or in the areas where there could be potential, high touch contact areas. Regarding classroom size, right now, if we're looking at an A-B type schedule, we're looking at anywhere between 10 to 13 students that would be in a class per time. But then if we were to return full-time, the class size would be up to 25. Our goal at the middle school was creating 3 schedules, 1 with a full-time return, 2 with an AB, and then 3 with a virtual, that students would be able to have the same period and be able to be in those classes without any change of times of day. So I did want to share that with you, because if at any point during the school year that we would have to go virtual as a building or as a district, the students would be able to still participate with their teacher during their designated class period time virtually. And we believe that was very important for consistency for our students. And that was feedback that we received from parents at the end of last school year. Regarding the hallways, we will have directional signs in the hallways regarding staying to the right side. And then we also are designating stairwells to the gym. And for those that remember, to our engineering by design technology class, there will be one-way stairwells that'll be in the building. That way we're limiting the amount of congestion, but also the passing of students. And then finally, rearranging classrooms. That's going to be a big change for Southern Middle School, for all of our schools. that we may be removing some furniture and desks from the classroom to make sure that we can accommodate for the social distancing in the class. Other guidelines that may have some changes, definitely with social distancing at this time, with concerts, athletics, back to school nights, parent conferences, they may be virtual or restructured to address social distancing guidelines. So the one thing I just want you to keep in mind regarding concerts, as someone who loves music, loves our music department, our performing arts teachers are just doing an awesome job of how they're going to be creative this year, that they're going to be able to create opportunities for small chambers or small groups that they're going to be able to meet with throughout the day that will be their performing art, their performance. So yes, we will have the performing arts, which was a question of many parents through the survey. As we continue to monitor the health of students and parents, if there are any underlying concerns, any medical concerns that your child may have, we've even shared the same thing with our staff to let me know, because we want to make sure we're not compromising your child's immune system, or even maybe you as a parent may have some immune deficiencies, or could have concerns with a child coming back in school and bringing that home. So if you're in that position, please contact me. You can call me, you can email me. I would prefer, to be in the know and do whatever we can to support you as a family to maintain safety. And then teachers and the nurse will, as well as us, we'll be looking for any symptomatic students. So as I said, if your child is not feeling well, coughing, sore throat, fever, please keep them home. Please keep them home, and then when they're well, they can come back to school. But if there's any concerns or any changes with students at school or even staff at school, that is something that we will see that is addressed. Our nurse will go through, look at the symptoms, determine the level of concern regarding the illness that they may have. Parents, you will be contacted, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything to keep your child safe. But I think that the big part is, if you know of something prior to the start of school that your child is not feeling well, please, for the safety of everyone, please keep them home as you would under any other circumstance, because we want to make sure, as we go through, this year, that, our students are being safe. So regarding any communication, if there is someone who, let's say a student or even a staff member, that tests positive for COVID-19, our Office of the Superintendent will be in contact with the Department of Health, and they will provide us with the protocols as well as what we would have to do regarding contact tracing to identify whether or not anybody else, could have been in a position where they could have contracted COVID from that person. So if there is a situation, that communication will come out, to the parents, so that you're aware of any type of situation that has occurred. But if you're aware of, obviously, of your child or even someone in your household that may have contacted COVID-19, please contact us. We've had parents, that have contacted us over the years, and we just want to make sure that, you're doing, we're all doing our part in communicating with each other about the impacts of this upcoming school year. Let me check my glasses here. So now I'm going to address some of the questions regarding, these are questions that were not related to either the social distancing, cleansing and sanitizing, and staff and student health, about athletics. Regarding the athletics, we are following the PIAA guidelines. That is something Brad Keeney, our athletic director, is paying a real close attention to. So any specifics regarding the middle school sports, which would be upcoming football, we have cross country, field hockey, cheerleading, any of that communication, any changes in that communication will come through our athletic department, but then more importantly, will be shared from us, as there are, or if there are any additional changes, limitations, or restrictions for our student athletes. Regarding the personal protective equipment, we're asking that, students do come to school, with personal protective equipment. The one thing I would ask, which I'm doing as a parent myself, is I'm having my children practice with the mask when we go places, when we are, shopping, going wherever it is, because the more comfortable they are with the mask, the more comfortable it will be for when they come to school. So the more you can do as a parent to practice with your child, it would be much appreciated, so that when we get back into a school setting, for the times where masks will be required, then they'll be, able to it, and they'll be more acclimated to it. If there are any students that are absent, as a result of COVID, or let's say they're absent as a result of being sick, we will handle that as we've done every other time in the past. We will allow, parents, contact with the teacher, teachers contacting with the student, and then working something out, because we want to make sure that any time that is missed, whether it is through, illness or whatever it may be, that your child has an opportunity to make that work up. Because priority, the social emotional learning of your child and safety is our, primary goal here. We want to make sure that we're making Southern Middle School the best middle school that it can be, the best middle school in the country. We all know that we're faced with, unprecedented times. So that communication that we have back and forth, that flexibility, all of that is going to be so critical as we're moving forward into this school year. Many questions had come up regarding lunches and what that would look like. Well, we have several different scenarios that we can put together regarding social distancing. Currently, we have around 6-foot tables within our cafeteria. So if students were to eat in the cafeteria, we could potentially have 2 students per table. But some of the other recommendations that are coming from Pennsylvania Department of Education is about students eating in their classroom, being able to social distance within their classroom. So we have worked with our culinary department, our foods department, which is Whitson's, and they have done just an awesome job providing us with the opportunities as well as the options where students would have, prepackaged meals, as opposed to, getting the meals off the serving line, as a way for the students to go in and grab the, their food, or have it delivered to the classroom. So as we move forward, we know that there are changes that are occurring related to the guidelines that are coming from the state, that could potentially come from the governor. But with our keeping that flexibility in mind, is we're doing everything we can to make sure that, we're following those safety precautions, social distancing, but more importantly, meeting the needs of the students that they have during the school day. Regarding bus transportation changes, a question came up as to whether or not, what if a student needs to ride a bus home with another student due to emergency reasons? In the past, what we have done is have students, complete a, there's notes that come in, that we would verify from both parent that has the conflict, as well as the parent of the student going home. So if there is a scenario like that, I would appreciate a contact to me, as well as Mrs. Schick, so then we can kind of look into that to make sure if there's a concern with transportation home, we want to make sure that, we're being flexible with that. Regarding the Digital Academy, we do have a Southern New York County School District's Digital Academy, and it does offer learning options for all students K-12. And it is 100% online. We have a continuity of education, and more importantly, it offers flexibility for students as well as for parents that may have children that are, concerned about coming back to school, whether it's full-time or even in the part-time, which what I'd say like the AB schedule. These classes are taught and overseen by our teachers here, at the middle school. And as mentioned previously in a communication, is that we would have enrollment through July 31st. That will give you parents an opportunity. If you have questions about Digital Academy, you can please reach out to me or Kate Scholas, who is the coordinator for the Digital Academy that works with our schools, or Mr. Andy Shilo. And, I can answer any specific questions that you have, and see that we're meeting the needs of your child, during these trying times. And they will also have an opportunity to participate in some of the electives, such as band, orchestra, and choir. We do have a program that our students will have an opportunity to utilize, which they experimented with in the fourth marking period last year, Smart Music. So it gives the teachers the ability to make connections with students so they can continue to progress in their love of music in those three component areas. And another component with our Digital Academy is it enables that transition between the Digital Academy and our school. So in doing so, we may have students that may start in Digital Academy and then return back to Southern Middle School, if things do change within the community, in the county, within the state, and gives you the opportunity to come back to our school. So it does give us that continuity, the ability to transition. So I just wanted to share that as a option as parents are looking at, what is going to be in the best interest of my child. But before you make any decisions, please make sure, if it's a decision of looking for something, outside of Southern Middle School, I would ask you, please give me the opportunity, give me a call. I'd love to talk to you, hear your concerns, but then also talk to you about some of the options that we have here. So what I'm going to do here is I have about 5 minutes here. I'm going to take a look at some of the questions. Don't worry, I'm just checking text messages. I have several staff members that are checking some of the questions for me that have come in. A question had come in: has a district thought of using nanoseptic tape on high touch points? That is something I believe, Holly, you might have sent that one in. I will need to follow up on that question, but I do appreciate that. And that will be something that I will follow up with in my video that will come out next week. Will there be leniency on days missed due to symptoms? Well, yes. If there are students that are sick and not feeling well, obviously we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep your child safe. So regarding those phone calls that some of you may have gotten, whether your child being at school or not, what we want to do is make sure that we're keeping your child safe. You're keeping your child safe. So yes, I can't tell you what that would look like, but obviously we're in unique times, and within unique times, we need to be, very flexible regarding our attendance. Question was, will Digital Academy have more work than the children who go to school? Well, the work that the students will have through the Digital Academy will be an online program that we have used over the last few years here at Southern Middle School. And it is very similar to, it follows our standards as the students would be following at school. So it would be online, it would be individually based, individually paced, and it will give the students the opportunity to continue to work on their components of the academics by following those standards. And it also gives the students the ability to accelerate within the class, accelerate within the school year. Because if you look at it in this perspective, students will start a class, brick and mortar, and go 180 days. But the students that are going online, yes, they will still have 180 days of what you consider work, but that could be chunked and broken down and worked at the pace of the student. The one question was asked about our advanced classes offered through Digital Academy. Southern Middle School has not offered the advanced classes. We have offered the courses that meet the standards in the past, as well as moving forward with the English, math, social studies, and science. If there are students that need that acceleration or that enrichment, that will be provided for and supported, especially for the parents that have students that are gifted that might need that additional support. We'll make sure that they receive that enrichment that way. Question was, will seventh graders still be able to take algebra? Absolutely. The one thing that we will maintain is for our seventh grade students, they'll be able to take Math 7 or algebra. In the eighth grade, it would be Math 8, algebra, as well as geometry. We spoke with our department, and it would be very difficult to combine those classes based on, even though there's Pennsylvania standards, there are also academic standards that are different based on those level of classes. So we will continue to offer those classes for the 7th and the 8th grade. So viewing the time here, the one thing I want to do is kind of just in closing, I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your evening. And please know that my number one responsibility is to keep your child safe as the best as I can. So the one thing that I want to make sure that you're aware is we're going to do everything we can, not only as a building, as a district, but we're going to need your help as a community, as parents, to make sure that we're doing the best we can to maintain, the safety for all of our children, not only at school, but outside of school. There is a special board meeting on Monday, July 20th at 3 p.m. It will be information that will come out regarding that, if it has not done so already. You can either view it on YouTube or Channel 99, and there will be a public comment link if there are any specific comments that the community would have. And then following, there will be a board meeting on Thursday, July 23rd, where the school board will make a decision on the proposed health and safety plan and make any decision based on any changes or modifications based on the presentation. So as a district, we'll continue to evaluate and plan, based on how things change, based on cases in our local community, within our county, within our state. But we'll also pay special close attention to the information that comes from the governor and the Centers for Disease Control as we're making those decisions. So, we offer, I do ask for your continued support and flexibility. I will continue to follow up and address any questions. So any questions I was not able to address, I will make part of my weekly video questions, as well as give you a video peek into some classrooms as to what that would look like regarding social distancing. So we are in challenging times, as I've mentioned. We will do everything in our power, to give your students the best experience here at Southern Middle School. We're going to do our best. We're going to keep them safe. We're going to do everything we can to make Southern Middle School the best middle school during this pandemic and beyond, the best middle school in the entire country. So thank you very much. Have a safe and wonderful weekend. And if you do have any questions, comments, or concerns, please be sure to email them to me, and I'll be sure that they're addressed in my future meetings. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.